lay yourself down, make yourself nice and comfy, and we shall begin. There was a theme. I wrote down hips and hugs for my theme this week, and I've not done anything. It turns in every lesson that I have is a hippie, not hippie as in let's all start wearing like love beads and chanting, but like about the hips. Hips to me are where it's at in terms of in terms of movement. And yeah, hugs, because we're supposed to hug each other. That was a theme, but that's gone out the window as well. So settling down, closing your eyes, and just beginning to sense the space that you occupy on the floor. From the back of the head all the way down to how you rest into the floor, legs straight, legs bent, whichever way you've chosen to lay. Notice how you are supported by the floor. Sense your left shoulder, your right shoulder, your left hip, your right hip, and all the curves behind the body, back of the neck, lower back. Sensing the length of your arms from your shoulders down to the tips of your fingers, and the length of your legs from your hip bones all the way down to your heels. And then from there, just beginning to pay attention to how you feel your breathing. So if you want to practice Ujjayi in the lesson, you're very welcome to. I tend not to. I just like my breath just to be there, to be in my periphery. So let's start the movement process. Standing your feet up on the floor so you can feel your balls of your feet and your heels, lovely footprints. And just check that your hip distance apart, so feet not too close together. And then beginning to lean your tailbone softly forwards into the floor so the lower back begins to float up. So just that space behind your belly button. And then letting the lower back find the floor. So you're just kind of rolling and trying to place the very top of your pelvis into the floor, and then roll your tailbone towards the floor in front of you. And then roll and sink your lower back into the floor. So it's trying, if you think about the length of your pelvis from the lower back to your tailbone, you're just rolling between those two places. And obviously you're moving your pelvis, but your pelvis is attached to your legs, your pelvis is attached to your spine. So follow the movements into those two places as well. Notice what your legs are doing. You might feel movement in your knees. You might actually feel that you're moving your feet, like you get a sensation that your heels are being pulled towards you, and that your heels are being pushed gently away. So spend a little time with that. Notice how that movement affects your legs. Is it even in your legs? Does one leg seem to work more than the other? Does one leg feel juddery? And then in your back, notice how your back moves. Notice how your ribs, your lowest ribs, seem to float up and float down towards the floor. So there's a little bit of a kind of like, I would say it feels like a bridge that's opening and closing. And then spend some time between your shoulders, noticing what your shoulders are doing on the floor. You might feel that they're kind of sliding up and down your back ribs. So you can give yourself a massage with your pelvis. And then noticing how that movement goes up into your head. You might feel your head nodding. Oh, I can see a lovely hot nodding head there. So just let your head nod with the movement. So your spine is doing a lovely little dance up through your body, relaxing into your neck. Your head nods kind of in approval with it. It's just basically echoing your pelvis. And then from this place, just begin just to settle. And if you could just focus on your right knee and just try to press the right knee forwards towards the wall in front of you. That should have the effect of lifting your right hip and keeping your left hip on the floor. So you just kind of tilted your pelvis a little bit to the left. Sink it down And then think about the front of your left knee and try to press it forwards towards the wall in front of you. That should have the effect of lifting your left hip. And then sink down, and you're just rolling across from one side of your hip to the other. Left hip floats up, right hip floats up, keeping your hips on one hip on the floor at all times. If you want to, you can pull your navel in towards your spine, so you give yourself a little bit of a massage. It's a little gentle tuck of your tailbone if you really want to. And you can let that go as well and just kind of think about your pelvis and just let your pelvis sink into the floor. Rolling from your left hip to your right hip. And again, that little occasional pelvic tilt will bring the lower back into the floor. So you can massage across that space behind your belly button. And then again, you can let it go and just come back into your pelvis. So you're keeping your knees relatively standing up. I love teaching you guys actually because you do it every single week. You know what I'm talking about. Going back to real life this week, I've noticed that people are like, woo, like knees are going left and right. So, and then settle back to center and then roll your tailbone forwards towards the floor and have a little circle. Bring one hip down, bring the lower hip, the lower back down, the other hip down, and then the pelvis. So circle all around the back of your pelvis. So I don't know if you've ever done that thing with a wine glass when you've wet your finger and you've circled around the edge of it and you can get that beautiful little singing sound. You know, just picture this is what you're doing with your pelvis. You're going all the way around the rim of the pelvis. And you can go the other way if that feels good. I don't think I can make your pelvis sing doing this. And then settling into center. We're just going to place hands behind the head now. So interlace your fingers, make a little cushion for your head. And then use your feet. So push your feet into the floor a little. This will begin to lift your pelvis up. Keep going, keep going, keep going until you kind of come up into a bit of a bridge. Really focusing on your footprints. Keep the toes pressed softly into the floor. Really visualize your footprints on the floor. And then tucking your chin toward your chest, bring your elbows together. Start to lift your head up. And the more you lift your head up, do you feel yourself rolling down your back? The more you lift your head up, you can feel your lower back coming towards the floor. And then eventually your pelvis comes to rest into the floor. So you've kind of curled up a little bit. To release, lift your pelvis up off the floor. And the more you lift your pelvis off the floor, allow your spine to uncurl and let your head come to the floor. And again, as you lift your head up, the more you lift your head up, using your hands, gently pulling, you can feel your spine come into the floor. So it's like a little pulley system. Lifting your hips up, rolling down the spine. Feel like a bit of like a carpet that's uncurling. So it's like just counterbalance almost. That's it. It kind of naturally happens, doesn't it? Don't fight it. I tend to notice that when you bring the head down that your hips go higher each time. So at the end of this movement, lay your head back down, bring your hips down, bring your knees in towards your belly, and just give yourself a little bit of a hug before you do anything else. And then extending your right leg out onto the floor, keep your left leg bent to start with, and then take your left foot up off the floor. We're supposed to have done this on Monday, but I completely forgot. So you've got your left shin kind of parallel to the floor, roughly speaking. And just let your arms rest down by your side. And all I want you to do is take your left leg out to the left. Your right hip will begin to like kind of tip away from the floor. Left hip stays down. Bring it back to the middle. So your pelvis is just kind of resting on the floor. Then you're taking that left leg out to the left. Right hip begins to lift. Bringing that leg back to center. Pelvis comes back to center. Just do it a few times. So it feels like you're waving your leg, but that leg is really in charge of your pelvis. Wherever the leg goes, the pelvis needs to follow it. So it's almost like you want to keep that leg nice and almost kind of stiff. Imagine that that left hip joint doesn't move. So for you to take that left leg out to the side, the pelvis has to turn with it. So keeping that left leg fixed, drift it over now to the right. So now your left hip bone comes away from the floor. And then roll back to the middle. And you're taking that left leg over to the right. So you're turning that whole pelvis around to the right. And then you can maybe go to the left and then go to the right. So you're kind of rolling all around the pelvis, getting a really good twist again through that lower back. Does that make any sense? It does make sense. I can see it makes sense. Very nice. So when you're ready, keep that left leg over on the left side, on the right side. So you're now laying, looking at your right arm in front of you. Take your left hand, place it on your forehead. So your left elbow is kind of pointing towards your ceiling. And then, as we just did with that left leg, think of now your elbow and your and this arm being attached to the shoulder and it doesn't move. It's like the elbow is an extension of your collarbone. Draw some circles with your elbow and just let the rib cage follow it. So try not to flap the arm. Keep the arm kind of relatively still. And whatever you do with the arm circles into the ribs and the head begins to move. You might notice your chin kind of lifting away from your chest. You might feel your chin coming into your chest. So just try to keep that elbow kind of relatively fixed and just let the body follow. And you can begin to roll the left elbow towards the floor. So you can roll the ribs towards the floor and then begin to open out the left elbow towards the floor behind you, feeling the ribs begin to turn, chest begin to turn towards the ceiling. And then again, roll that left elbow towards the floor. So you're rolling across the back of the ribs, rolling to the right side. Let your head turn with it. And again, roll all the way back. Just play with that movement. You just, think less of pushing, think more of just being in that moment, noticing how the cogs of the spine turn. So let the rib cage go all the way towards the floor. So it's very easy just to stop and let the elbow come in. So just, turn, let your chest turn towards the floor, let your head turn towards the floor, let that elbow come towards the floor. That's it. And again, open all the way out, let your head go with it. Just see if you can keep your head on the floor. I don't know if it's like space issues in some of the rooms. That's it. And just let the rib cage turn. So you're going to be kind of rolling all around that right side of the body. That right arm's going to feel like it crosses over the front of your chest. Yeah, I thought you were fighting the space there. And then begin to open out into your twist. Start to unfurl, and we can let the left hand find the space behind us. We can bend the elbow. We can let the fingers relax and just keep that left leg softened over to the right. If it feels good, you can take your head to look towards your left hand, or you can just keep looking at the ceiling, whatever feels most comfortable for your head, for your neck. And then spend some time feeling your breath in your belly, your heart, your shoulder, that left side. Okay, so from here, straighten your legs so you can rest back on your back. And just for a moment, check out your left side. It might feel a little different to your right. And then bending your right knee. So you've got your left leg straight on the floor. You've got your right leg bent this time. And again, just imagine that you've got absolutely zero movement in your right hip. So you're going to take the right knee out towards the floor on your right, and your left side of the pelvis floats up. And then bringing that right leg back to centre, so your pelvis comes back to its natural resting place. And just take the leg out to the side, let the left hip float up. And just feeling how your left foot kind of slides a little bit. You're going to feel the left big toe coming to the floor, knee bends a little bit. And as you come back, resting back on that left heel. And then whenever you're ready, you can take that right leg over to the left, pelvis turns. And then roll back to the middle. So again, you try not to wave the leg around. Think of like zero movement in that hip joint. And then whenever it feels good, settle into your twist. So, coax your way there. Think less of kind of heaving into that movement. So you just, whenever you feel ready about settling on that side, settle into your twist. Bringing then your right hand onto your forehead whenever you settle. So you've got your right elbow pointing to the ceiling, and again in that same way as we've just done, try not to wave the arm. Think of the elbow being attached to the collarbone and it's nice and stiff, and then draw those circles with the elbows and allow the ribs to open, and you're going to feel the right side of the body lengthen, and let your head turn with the movement, keeping your head on the floor. And then whenever you want, start to turn this right elbow towards the floor. Let your forehead roll into the floor. Let your rib cage roll. So you're going to feel your belly and your chest kind of rolling towards the floor. And then lifting the right elbow up. Keep going and keep going, keep going. So you can then feel the rib cage opening out, that right shoulder coming towards the floor behind. Take your gaze towards the space behind you. And then again, elbow lifts up towards the ceiling, rolls around, and again, you let your right knee slide away in front of you a little bit along the floor so you can feel your belly and your chest coming towards the floor. And again, open out, round towards your little twist. Be in the moment, feel how the body moves. Allow the rib cage to move, that's it, towards the floor. That's it, keep your head on the floor. Think of your head rolling with the movement. End of the day, you've got, if it feels uncomfortable, you can always put a little cushion underneath your head just to make it a little bit more comfortable. So, and then whenever you're ready, you can settle into the twist. So you might not want to do, what's been really interesting this week is watching people just continue moving. There's a lot to be said for moving, actually. It really keeps you in the moment as well. I see these movements as lovely little moving meditations. If you want to rest in it, you rest in that twist. If you want to keep moving, you keep moving. That's it. Just let the shoulder fall back a little. That's it. Bend the elbow and just think about softening through that elbow. Just add to bend the elbow a little bit so you can, that's it. And then just let the hand begin to rest. Take some really beautiful breaths into that right side of the body. So your breath, it kind of goes into the fascia, there's a big webbing all the way through the body. Just feel how that breath in the tummy migrates into the chest, into the arm itself, almost like you could breathe into your right arm. Okay. So from here, I've got a lovely little crazy way of coming up to seated. Are you ready for this? So from your little twist, bring your legs back into the middle, like we're going to do happy baby. We're going to place hands on knees. We're going to keep our hands on our knees. I attempted this on Monday morning's lesson. So keep your hands on your knees. Taking your knees over to the right. So your left knee closes, keeping your head on the floor. So you're rolling onto your right side. And then lift your left knee up. Look at it with your eyes as opposed to with your nose. Eventually, the more you lift your left knee, the more you roll onto your back. And then looking at your right hand as you bring your right knee towards the floor, rolling again back onto your right side, left knee closes onto the right, and then lifting your left knee up, rolling back onto your back. So keep hold of your knees. This is a strange request. So as you bring your knees over to the right this time, start to take your left knee towards the space, just whoops-a-daisy by your right foot. Keep your chin tucked in, and you might be able to kind of come up a little bit. Oh, it's a bit, I have to give myself a bit of a way on the way up, and then the next time you'll find it a little bit easy. Once you come up, roll back down, keep hold of the knees. And then you're going to do it again. Right knee towards the right floor. You're going to guide that left knee towards your right foot. Way, tuck your chin in, and you should be able to kind of roll up a little bit. Oh, I tell you, we do random stuff like this. I'm like kicking like a little chicken today with this one. Roll back down. And then do it again, right knee. There you go, left foot. So there's a bit of it, you're going to kind of focus on that left leg being having a little bit of force, lengthening away a little bit with your left knee. Can you roll up and down? So right knee, left knee towards left, towards that sole of the right foot, tuck the chin, and you kind of stiffen and roll up. It's become a party trick, this. Randomly, the thing that I found the most beneficial for this is actually what happens in my wrists. I've had a really lovely sense of like some clicking and detangling in my wrist with this little movement. So shall we go the other way? Roll back onto your back. love this. And then have a look at your left knee. Take your left knee towards the floor. Close the book roll onto your left side. So don't be in a hurry to go the other way. Lifting your right knee brings you back to centre. I'm just going to spin around so I can keep a little nosy on you. So looking with your eyes towards your left knee. Close the book, and then as you lift your right knee, look at it with your eyes and roll back onto your back. So your eyes are, you've got something to look at, haven't they? And then when you're ready, take your left knee down and bring your right knee towards your left foot. Tuck your chin and see if you can roll up. Keep hold of the knee. You need that hand to connect to the knee. And then again, roll back down. So left knee comes towards the floor, and then you're pushing your right knee towards the sole of your left foot, and that helps you spring up. You can roll around like a weeble doing this. So for me, I feel the right shin is just pushing away, and that helps you come up. So should we go both ways? Coordinate so you don't crush anybody. Whee! And you have to say wee as well. It's fun. No, it's not. I'm going to headbutt this wall. Okay, so let's stay up, shall we? Bring yourself to seated. Oh, I feel very tired. And then taking yourself towards the back of your mat, settling into child's pose at the back. I'm sure I was doing something other than child's pose. No, I wasn't. There you go. Okay. So spread your hands towards the front of the mat, forehead sinks towards the floor, and then use your shins. So we just realised we've got really powerful shins in that movement. I really felt the shins kind of led it. So push your shins down into the floor, feel how your bottom floats up, keep your arms straight, and allow yourself to kind of pivot over your shoulders, bending the elbows, softly coming down to the floor. I have got a cold, my jumper's ridden up. So imagine whatever underneath you is really hot or really cold. Use your hands, lever yourself up. Use the hands, pushing your hands forward, sinks your bottom down towards your heels, settle down. Use your shins again to push. Keep the arms straight, feel your body pivot over your shoulders, and then once you kind of settle in, it's like a kneeling plank, bend the elbows, feel the pelvis come down, feel the belly come down, feel the chest come down, feel the nose come down. And then again, press into your hands, rise up, sink back down. And you might notice your spine, you're going to all sorts of places. You're going from flexion from your child to neutral, kind of hanging out a little bit in kind of kneeling plank, and then you're going into extension. Just slow the extension down, bend the elbows, feel your hips come towards the floor. Notice how what your chest is doing. So my chest is actually slightly behind my shoulders, so I'm just going to bring the shoulders slightly back so the chest comes more forwards. Then I'm bending the elbows, feeling my spine lengthening, let the head come down to the floor, and then repeating. So use your hands, and again sink down. So you can begin to play with this. So you can rest in plank if you really want to. You can rest in your cobra if you really want to. So start, to be playful with it. Take from this what your body needs. I often feel like I have these out-of-body experiences as I'm teaching, that everybody's doing exactly what I'm doing. And if your body doesn't need that, play with that. So, for some reason, I'm wanting to hang out in cobra today. So I'm using my hands and rolling my hips a little bit, and that feels really good to me. But if you think, you know what, I need to plank, you can push your heels away, push down into the floor. If you're happy kind of going through that entire little sequence, go into that little sequence and just play with it in your own way. The next time you lay on your belly, stay there, but tuck your toes under, keeping your hands where, well, actually take your hands out in press up position, so really wide elbows. So hands shouldn't be too close to the body, elbows nice and wide. Think of having really stinky armpits and you just kind of want them to air on the floor. So you've got your toes tucked under. Pushing your heels away from you will lift the knees. And just push down with your toes so you can feel yourself kind of push forwards towards the front of your mat. Push back with your heels. You'll feel yourself being drawn towards the end of the mat, at the base of the mat. Pushing down with toes, head pushes forwards, pushing down with heels, head draws down. Lift your head if you want to, and just kind of, you'll see the mat kind of passing under you. And if you want to, you can have your forehead on the floor and give your head a bit of a rub. It's up to you. And for me, this is all about what's happening in the feet. You're giving your feet a really good massage, kind of getting into the fascia and the plantar fascia. And then from here, drop your knees down and keep your hands where they are, but we're going to focus on the shoulders. Now, to press your right shoulder to the floor and then press your left shoulder to the floor. Press your right shoulder to the floor. Press your left shoulder to the floor. So you're going to get your shoulders kind of doing a bit of a wiggle dance kind of thing, like from that time walk dance. So then just pause in the middle and bring your right shoulder back and just see if you can let your chest turn a little bit. You're going to be able to turn your head to look to your right shoulder quite with a bit more ease, and then relax it to the floor, and then bring your left shoulder back. Turn your chest, look towards your left side. Relax it down. And just thinking about your shoulders doing all that hard work. So you're going to feel this in your back here. From your shoulder down, that is going to bring that shoulder back. And then doing the other one, that's going to bring the shoulder back. So feel the movement in the back. Try not to use your hands on the floor. And then as you turn to look towards your right hand next time, just push a little bit with your right hand. See if you can roll onto your left hip a little bit. Let your right knee turn out and slide your right knee up towards your right elbow on the floor. Slide it back. Turn. Drawing that left shoulder down a little bit. Press slightly into that left hand so you roll a little bit more onto your right hip. Slide your left knee towards your left armpit. Slide it down. So I'm saying towards the armpit, that's not the game. It's just about letting the knee be invited. So you feel like you're climbing a little bit. Feel your pelvis roll a little bit. So the leg that's moving, you should feel there's lots of distance between that hip and the floor. So you've kind of rolled onto the opposite hip, which is going to give you that ability to pull the knee up a little. So as you roll onto your left hip, we can bring that right knee up. And as you roll and go onto your right hip, you can bring the left knee up. Settle down. Then use your hands to push yourself up and back and settle into child. Just notice how your spine feels. It might feel a little bit longer as you rest in child. Okay, so looking at your hands, use your shins to push up to all fours. Tuck your toes under. And then walk your hands in towards your knees. So you're coming towards the back of the mat, rolling into something that feels crouchy. And then think of heavy knees. Let your knees come back to the floor. Walk your hands forwards, back to plank, and settle down. Let your elbows go wide in plank. Settle back down onto your tummy. Tuck your toes under. Push with your hands. Walk your hands in towards your knees, rolling back into crouch. And then let your knees come to the floor, walk your hands forwards, keep going, settle back. Bend your elbows nice and wide so you're back on your tummy. Use your hands to push yourself up. Walking your hands in towards your knees, rolling back into crouch. And just play with that in your own little way again. So we're going to stay in crouch eventually. Let's just do maybe one or two. So again, be with sensation. Be with where your hands are. Feel what feels supportive. Elbows bending. Control to the floor. And then, again, use your hands to ease yourself into your crouch. Okay, so have a look at your crouch. You've all got different knees, different feet, different calves. So if your calves are particularly tight, your heels might not come to the floor. If you've got really long thigh bones, your heels might not come to the floor. So it doesn't really matter. And then relaxing your head. We're going to push towards standing from here. So just think of pushing down with your toes. And as you push down with the toes, you feel the toes stiffen, and we can begin to open out the legs. Keep your knees bent, let your belly stay on your thighs throughout. So you might not fully straighten your legs. Keep the rib cage on your thighs. So bend, believe it or not, if you bend the knees, it creates a little bit more flexion in your hips. It's going to let that belly rest in your thighs. Let your head dangle at the end. You can give it a bit of a wobble. And then when you're ready, bend the knees again, come back down to crouch. That's it. And play with that movement in your own little way. I'm just going to get rid of this mat. My carpet does not like mats. That's it. So bending the knees, that's it. If you bend the knees, you get more flexion in your hips, and it just helps kind of take off the tension we have in the hips. And if you want to maybe look at your hamstrings, you can, in your fold, straighten one leg at a time, let your hips kind of waggle with that movement. Just feel the support of your feet on the floor. Keep your head nice and relaxed. That's it at the end of the spine. And just beginning to settle into whatever fold feels appropriate. So you can explore straightening your legs. Just questions that feel nice. If you've straightened the legs, please don't let the knees lock completely out. That's not healthy. Keep the knees nice and soft. So one thing I do know is that your body's meant to have certain contours, and even the back of the knee is a contour that should remain intact. So never push against that contour. Keep that slight bend of the knee. And then tuck in your tailbone under, begin to slowly round standing. Keep your hands kind of draping, eventually stacking. That's it, roll up through the spine. Hey. So we're going to do a sun salutation. So we're going to use that roll up to get us into extension. I need to just move this way. I've got an invisible mat now. So looking down towards your feet, just make sure that your feet are in a good position. When I first started doing yoga, I was told have feet together. No, have your feet under your hips. It's going to firstly feel better for your fold. It's going to maybe even give you a better fold. So maybe turn your toes in, turn your toes out, have a wiggle, kind of settle in. If you want to close your eyes and then just kind of settle into your footprint, you might be surprised as to what your legs actually do when you look down at them. So settle into what feels good. And then once you've kind of settled into your feet, let your hips push back a little bit. And so your tailbone right now is kind of behind your heels in some way. And then round your spine, droopy, droopy, droopy. So just feel how that lower back opens out. And then as we've just uncurled again, it's all from your tailbone. Think about bringing your tailbone to the space between your feet. So you're going to begin to feel your spine beginning to stack. And then your tailbone, tuck it underneath you. So imagine it's now pointing towards your toes, and you can then feel yourself lengthening up and looking to the ceiling. If it feels good, sweep your hands back. And then your tailbone again, bring it over your heels. As you bring it over your heels, your thighs begin to stack over your shins, pelvis stacks, spine stacks, bringing your hands to heart. So this is how we found Namaste. Rolling down into fold. So again, knees bent, belly finds thighs, hands come towards the floor. So again, some of us might touch the floor naturally, some of us might not. Hands to shins, straighten out into full half fold. So again, just keep that little back bend at the back of the knees, lengthen through crown and tailbone. And then again, drape down. So the knees might bend a little more so we can release the back. From this place, stepping back into plank. So walk back with both feet, placing your hands on the floor, pushing back with heels. Ooh. And then from here, drop your knees to the floor. Relax your hips, moving into upward dog. Bend the elbows so you come down onto tummy. Place your hands on the back, roll the shoulders back, coming into cobra, but not using the hands, so use the back. Hands come to the floor, press and tuck the toes under, rolling up and back into downward facing dog. That's it. So bend the knees a little. So always keep that little bend in the knees. Use the hands. Keep imagining you could push forward with the hands. Imagine the front of the mat is really, really smelly. You don't want it near your face. Keep those hands pushing forward, lengthening the spine. Heels off the floor. Really good. And then looking at your hands, step forwards with your left foot. Bring your left foot towards your left hand. Step forwards with your right foot and then into fold. Inhale, hands to shins, walking out to half fold. Exhale, soften back down to full fold. Tuck the tailbone, roll up to standing. Follow the tailbone under, lengthening the spine up and back, sweeping hands up. Tailbone over heels, legs stack, hips stack, spine stacks, and rolling down again. Inhaling, hands to shins. You might keep the fingertips on the floor. It depends on anatomy. That might be another option. Exhaling, hands come back down towards the feet, settle into full fold and walking back into plank. So we can come down with a press up if you want to. So elbows wide, coming down if you wish that way. And then place your hands on your lower back and curling up into cobra. So try not to use the hands, use the muscles. Settle back down. Hands to floor, pushing up and back and into downward facing dog. So again, knees bent. Use the hands to lengthen the spine. So that push of the hands brings the spine all the way back. So keep the knees softly bent, heels off floor. Really, really nice. Looking at your hands, walking your right foot towards your right hand, left foot comes in, take a fold. Inhale, hands to shins, open out to half fold. Exhale, full fold to the floor. Tucking the tailbone, rounding up, so curl up through the spine, hips push forward, roll and lengthen back. Tailbone comes back, bringing back to Namaste. We're just going to do one more, keep rolling. Roll down, soften to the floor. Inhale, hands to shins. Exhale. Oh, you might be all going different. If you all know what the sun salutation is, why am I even telling you? I'll let you do it. So go at your own rhythm. Very nice. So coming down however you like. So you might be coming down with elbows bent. I quite like the elbows bent when it challenges the arms. That's it. Try to use the muscles of the back. Look at the floor as you're doing that, because if you look forward, it collapses the integrity of it. So keep the chin tucked in. It feels a little bit stronger. That's it. Then come back down. There's a little bone in your throat called the hyoid bone, and when we're in a cobra, if we look forwards, it kind of slackens everything inside. So if you keep that chin tucked in, it kind of tightens it and brings a little bit more strength. So if you're doing that at home another time, just keep the gaze neutral. Be tempted not to lift the chin. It shortens the neck and collapses the cobra. Sorry, I know lots of useless information. So when you're ready, walking yourself back into fold. And again, opening out into half fold of choice. Sinking back down into full fold, whenever you want. I might be going a little bit quick for you and then rolling back. Lovely. All right. So we're going to do one of my favourite little sequences. I don't even know if it's called this, but I've got lots of teachers. She calls it Satangalola. If you look it up on the internet, you'll find this one teacher doing it. But basically it involves chair and it involves using the legs an awful lot. So strong legs, great for running, great for standing, great. You just need strong legs, what can I say? As we get older, we tend to use our arms more, keep the legs strong. Anyway, so looking at your feet, again, think about that and that, your natural turnaround. So if you want to have a wiggle your feet, come to natural stance with your feet. And then we're just going to place our hands on, so there's your ribs, open out, floating rib, And then you've got pelvis, funnily enough. So I don't know, I've got tiny hands and I can reach. Depends if you've got really long waist, you might be like really struggling to reach. But if you can just try to get that the gauge of where your pelvis is and where these ribs are, trying to keep this space nice and still as we practice our chair. So from this place, just bend the knees. Try to keep that space through the spine. So try not to let the ribs come forwards and the bottom shoot back, or kind of collapse here. Keep that space. And then hinge at the hips. We're going to tip the pelvis forwards. Keep that space so you can feel your bottom kind of widen into the space behind. Go a little deeper, bend the knees a little more. Keep that space. And then take your hands forwards if you wish. Push with your feet to rise up. And then bring your hands back to heart. So you can place those hands at your ribs and your pelvis again if you're not really sure. And then again, bend the knees, keep that space. We're trying to just try and keep our spine balanced throughout. Hinging at the hips, keep that space. Bend the knees some more, try to take a seat. Bring the hands forwards. Push with feet, standing tall. Namaste. I say namaste, that means greetings, doesn't it? There's nothing greeting about this. I'm quite comfortable now with what my pelvis and my ribs are doing. So just mindfully keeping that awareness in the center of my body. And then use the legs to push. And then sweeping back. So we're going to add a fold into this. So again, coming, hands wherever you feel most comfortable. Coming down through chair. Notice your knees should be going somewhere in that direction of your toes. Feel the footprints. Tip the pelvis. Feel the length of the spine. Bend the knees some more. Keep going this time. So now your belly drops down onto thighs. Keep those arms extended. And then to let your hands come to floor, slowly open your legs. Not open your legs, open out the knees. And let your fingertips come to floor because you've straightened your legs. To come back from here, bend your knees again. Hands come away from the floor because your knees are bending. Weight goes into legs. And then push with the legs to come to standing. Hands come to heart. So we're going to do the work of moving the spine. Sweeping up. Bend the knees. Hips push back. Again, feel the length of the spine. Bend the knees some more. Keep going till your belly starts to meet your thighs. Let your belly lengthen along the thighs and then straighten the legs a little. You're going to hinge towards the floor. Think of just your arms not actually moving. Keep those arms still. The hands will come to the floor because you have opened out your legs. That's it. Rising back up. So let the legs do all the work of the spine. I think it's time to have a little rest. So resting in Tadasana. And then we're going to just move through one little standing sequence. So moving towards the front of your mat if you're not there already. And we're just going to come through chair. So bend your knees in that same way as we've just been doing. Your chair doesn't have to be that dynamic. We can kind of rest here, raising the arms. And then placing your hands on your thighs, hinge forwards into half fold. Sliding hands down to shins into full fold. Walking yourself back into plank. Come into the floor however you like. Hands to lower back. Keep looking at the floor as you peel up. Hands come to the floor, pushing and rolling back. You can go into child, you can go into dog, you can go into cat cow. I did see a lady yesterday just lay on the floor on her belly and I really loved her for it. Looking at your right hand, sweep your right foot up towards the ceiling. Sweep it through by your right hand, plant the foot. So you might reach, you might take a few little goes. Right knee over right foot, press down with the foot to sweep up, moving into something that resembles warrior one. That's it. So left heel lifted behind, hips, belly happily pointing forwards, hands to sky. And again, have that awareness of your ribs and your pelvis. Where are they in relation to each other? So let's keep that back leg straight to start with, and then bend the left knee just a little towards the floor. And then straighten the left leg, and then dip the knee a little towards the floor. So this right knee bends each time you bend that left knee. Exhale down. Inhale up. Exhale down. Bring the hands to the floor. And move back to plank. So again, this is your choice. You can just kind of lay down and think, oh, not enough. Or you can go through that little vinyasa and end in your dog. So when you might be on all fours, you might be in the dog. Take your left foot by your left hand. Bend your left knee. And then press to stand. Whee. So again, we've got that right heel naturally lifted. Pelvis upright. Ribs softened over the hips. You can bring the hands up. And then your right knee, what is it doing? Bend it towards the floor. Straighten it up. Try not to kind of lean back, so that's going to engage those back muscles. Think of just carrying the spine. Sweeping your hands towards the floor. Again, you can vinyasa, you can lay on your belly, you can cat cow. In fact, I'm going to cat cow. I'm feeling really hot today. When you're ready, take your right foot by your right hand. Lift that back knee if you're on all fours. Push with your right foot, rising back. This time you're going to plant the left heel. So we're going to keep this right leg is going to, I can't even speak. Left heel's on the floor, right foot's in front of you. Pick up the toes of your right foot. So if you've got really wide stance, this is going to be really horrific. Stick your feet closer together, a little bit closer together. And then lift up the toes of your right foot. So you've got the heel of your right foot on the floor, ball of the foot is off. I would say turn your left heel in slightly and then bend your left knee. So you're going to kind of take a seat on that left foot against that sense that we just had in the chair with the central, with that neutral spine. Hands sweeping up. Place the right foot down, return to the floor, vinyasa, lay down, cat cow, it's up to you. Child if you want to. Left foot comes by the left hand, and then bend that left knee, push down with the foot to rise up. Oh, I'm making you very hot, I think, today. Step your right foot in, so you've got that sole of the right foot on the floor, left foot's in front. Turn that right heel in fractionally. It's just going to make that knee feel a lot nicer, I think, about lunging. Lifting the front of your left foot. That's it. And then bend, thinking of staying in chair, so ribs and pelvis align. Bend your right knee, sink back. Hands float forwards. And sweeping down, sinking back to the floor in whichever way you like. I might keep you on the floor actually. So roll back into dog or into child, whatever floats your boat. 5 breaths. Looking at your hands, step in your feet forwards into fold. Knees bent. Inhale, half fold. Placing your hands on your shins, keep that sense of length through your spine, and then bend your knees. So your weight's going to go more into feet. You kind of come into what feels more like a bit of a chair, bottom towards the floor. Sweep your hands up, push down with the feet, rise to standing. Exhale, hands to heart. So we're going to come to the floor, but in a really lovely deep fold. So open out your legs. And again, go with whatever feels right for your footprint. So when I first started teaching yoga, I'd come through Iyengar. Iyengar is all about parallel feet, but that doesn't take into account anybody's thigh bones. Some people have got, if you bring your feet together, my feet come together quite well. Some people's don't. Some people's knees hit. Some people's toes turn out. We've all got different legs. So again, if you just maybe want to stand with your feet like naturally, wiggle them out. Don't even think about where they land. Just let them feel comfortable on the floor underneath you. Maybe look at your feet. You might notice that one turns out more than the other. Once you've found your stance, lift your toes up, spread them out from little toe to big toe. Feel your footprints. Placing your hands on the crease between your pelvis and your thighs. Have a bit of a squidge. Tip your pelvis over your thumbs. Roll down from here. You're going to feel yourself kind of pushing your thumbs into that little crease. Once you come down, take your hands down towards your shins. So you might want the support of your hands on your shins. You might have your knees bent. So again, knees bent increases that flexion, opens out the backs of the hamstrings. So play with that, bend the knees, maybe even bend your right knee, come back, bend your left knee, come back. Let your kind of hips move over the leg that you're bending a little bit. So waggly fold. And then walking your hands down to your feet. So you might need to bend your knees to get your hands to the floor. Depends on how long your arms are, I suppose. Hands in line with your feet, so hands wide. Keeping your weight in your feet, walk your hands on tiptoes and fingertips forwards. Keep the weight in your feet. Just let your gaze draw down to that space between your feet. So fingers outstretched in front. Stay on tented fingers. Feel the weight of your body in through your feet. So your body shouldn't be going into your hands. Come back to your anchor. And then bring your palms to the floor, shift your weight forwards over your hands, bring your knees to the floor, and sit down. I'm really glad I've got fuzzy focus on today because I'm absolutely sweltering. Sorry. Not sorry. Yes, I am. No, I'm not. Okay. The joy of teaching online is I don't have to sequence this. I've been trying to teach this little thing we're going to do next in a room, and I'm like, oh, everybody turn to the left, because on a floor, do they want to have the hands on a floor in a place they're not known about? So you guys, you're so lucky. You've got your hands on the floor behind you, knees really wide, and I mean because we're going to drop the knees into each other. So if you've got the knees together, it's just not going to feel as happy really. So knees wide, hands on the floor, and then start to drop your knees to the left, and because your right knee is attached to your thigh bone, your right hip will float. Take your knees to the right. Because your left knee is attached to the hip, your left hip will float. Go with that sensation of your pelvis turning because your knees are turning. Let your belly begin to turn with it. So as you take your knees over to the left, let your right hand come around as well. And as you let your knees go over to the right, let your left hand come around as well. So it's a really subtle twist. So we're kind of going into Sage's twist territory. So Sage's twist is one where I've used to kind of lead my way into it. But just kind of notice, spend some time with your thigh bones. As you turn to your left, just notice how you go all the way around that left thigh bone, all the way around that left hip. You can maybe bring the hands to the floor, maybe slightly behind you if you want to. Turn your gaze over the opposite shoulder, over the shoulder that you've turned towards. So as you bring your knees over to the left and your hands sweep around to the left, look over your left shoulder. Continue the movement. As you take your hands around to the right and your knees go to the right, continue the movement. It's just going to make sense to follow it into your neck, isn't it? Just follow it subtly. So it's a great little movement, this, for your hips. Obviously, you're kind of getting some really lovely flexion through the front of the hips. You're going into the psoas muscle, releasing psoas. into the sacrum. So that hips is this massive junction box for everything. And then what we can begin to do is settle. So should we all settle on our right side? So let your knees fall to the right. Both hands come around towards that right side. And just place your hands on the floor. I'm going to spin around just either side of your right knee. So your left knee's somewhere by the sole of your right foot. And then this is something I quite like. So your tailbone. So we've noticed this pelvis has got a lot to say for us, haven't we? Lift your tailbone up. So this should push your belly forwards and your heart forwards, and then tuck your tailbone down. So it's like you're trying to imagine you want to take a seat by your left heel. This is going to pull your spine back. Lifting your tailbone up, let it push your heart forwards. And then again, take that tailbone down. Imagine you want to take a seat on that left heel and your spine follows it. So your pelvis is kind of rocking, but your spine follows the movement. Just slow it down. And then settling into our sense of neutral, looking down towards your right knee, turn your head to look towards your left leg behind you and start to slide the left foot away, lengthening the leg out into something that feels like pigeon. And just bring the knee back again. So knee towards the right foot and then slide it back. As you straighten that left leg, your pelvis kind of turns from side on and begins to rotate towards the floor, towards that little pigeon. Does that make any sense? So let your pelvis turn towards the floor, towards your pigeon. If you're not sure, you can always place that hand on your left hip and follow that movement. You'll feel it. There you go. So I can quite see it. That's quite nice. That's it. So as you straighten that left leg behind, let's settle in our pigeon. So feel how your pelvis turns towards the floor. Then you can place your hands on the floor. And we can keep the toes tucked under if you want to, but I think it's better. Go with whatever feels better for your back foot, actually. And then have a little look at your right knee. Wiggle it somewhere that feels comfortable. And then turn your head to look towards your left leg. And as you do that, you might feel yourself rolling on this right hip. And maybe again, place your left hand on this left hip. Turn your head. So as you're looking over your right shoulder this time, you might feel that left hip coming closer to the floor. And then as you turn your head and look over your left shoulder, this left hip kind of rolls away from the floor. Just do that in a way so we can get to feel what's happening in the hips. And then once you're happy with it, you can place the hands on the floor and just turn your head. And for me, I get a sense that I've got like a really big tail and I can feel it wagging behind me, that left foot having a little roll on the floor. Really getting into, again, those little hip flexors. And then let's roll onto that right side. Bring the left knee in, place your hands on the floor and have a go the other way. Whee! So when you are ready, take your knees over to the left. So you've got that right knee somewhere just by your left foot. Hands come to the space just in front of your left knee. And again, try to take a seat on that heel behind you. So you're going to tuck that tailbone under, let it round the spine. And then lifting the tailbone up, it's going to lengthen the tummy, it's going to lengthen the heart, and you're going to kind of feel yourself coming almost like into that lion pose situation. Tailbone tucks under, round the spine. Lift the tailbone up, and again, just should feel kind of cat-cowy. So whatever your tailbone does, your spine follows suit. In fact, we did it on the floor. When we first started that class, we took the tailbone, we flattened the back, and the spine followed suit. So just feel that motion. Whatever you do with the tailbone, the spine follows suit. And then settling into neutral. Placing your right hand on your right hip. Have a look at your right foot behind you and just begin to straighten it out along the floor. And as you straighten it out, you'll feel that right hip bone turning towards the floor, and then slide the right knee back in towards the left foot. And you'll feel it kind of pulling back into a little sideways movement. Straightening the right leg behind turns the pelvis towards the floor. So just feel your pelvis kind of turning from left to right. And then whenever you're ready about settling into your little pigeon, keep that right leg out on the floor, let your pelvis turn, and just bring those hands to the floor behind you, in front of you. Behind you, that'd be crazy. You'd never stay up. And again, you could just place that right hand on the hip, just if you want to, just to feel what happens. And turn your head to look towards your right foot, and you'll feel the pelvis kind of float up. Turn your head so you now look into the floor and then look over your left shoulder, and then you'll feel that right hip kind of roll towards the floor. Turn your head, look towards your right foot, let the pelvis roll. Turn your head to look to the floor, and then once you kind of get that sensation that you're kind of letting the pelvis move with your head, bring your hands to the floor and just close your eyes and turn your head and let that movement flow all the way down into your right foot like you're wagging your tail. Go as slowly or as speedily as you like. Just let the movement flow into the knee, into the foot. And then from here, roll back onto your knees, or you need your hands, and have a little play left and right. Oh, I couldn't see Mum then. I thought you'd just shooed her out of the room so you could have all that space to yourself. Okay, so from here, let's take ourselves towards the floor. So just resting your belly on your thighs to start with. Stack your spine so you come to sitting upright. Bring your hands in front of you and take your time to lower each part of the spine towards the floor. Uncurl, bring your hands down, extend your legs out, and close your eyes. Settling into the rhythm of your breath. Notice how the body moves with your breath. Again, from the crown of the head down to the hips, sense and feel the space that you occupy on the floor. Notice how the head rests into the floor. Notice the spine and all the curves. Noticing the hips and the heaviness of the hips. Sensing the length of the legs from the hip bones down to the heels and the toes. And the length of the arms from the shoulders to the hands. Tuning into how the belly floats with each breath you take, and the sense that the navel draws back without really thinking towards the spine. So picturing you've got a little balloon under your tummy and it's inflating and deflating. Just observe your breath. It's funny, I think once you say observe your breath, you start to kind of adapt it. So, just, try and be a witness to your breath, if that makes any sense at all. Let your navel sink down towards your spine, guide it very softly back, hold it there and keep breathing. So we're keeping that anchor of the navel, quietening the diaphragm, and just explore your breath in your chest. Picturing yourself breathing in just to your right lung. Picturing you breathing just into your left lung. Picture yourself breathing into both lungs. Slowly relaxing your belly. Keep breathing. Just let your breath go into your tummy and into your chest. It's a full yogic breath. And then just letting the breath fall a little more soft. Let it move into a gentle ujjayi so it catches in the throat. So it's kind of feeling like you're trying to fog up a mirror with your breath, but your lips are closed. You're just going to feel that breath in the throat. So natural rhythm, natural breath, no push-ins, just soft, gentle ujjayi. And then relaxing the ujjayi, settling into a natural rhythm. And then this is when we just begin to notice what's happening at a deeper level inside the body. So just be the inner witness. How would you kind of name the sensations you feel in the body? Could you give the mood a name? Do you feel calm? Do you feel busy-minded? Do you feel happy? Do you feel sad? Do you feel angry? What's happening inside? And then the physical body, how does it feel? Checking in on your energy levels. Do you feel like you've got, twitches that you need to address, or is it, calm like a lake? Do you feel kind of balanced with our energy levels? Is the mind active? Is the mind quiet? So whenever you're ready, walk your feet back inwards towards your hips and just gently roll the tailbone softly into the floor. Gently ease the lower back into the floor. And just observe the flow of energy from the floor coming up in through the bones. Notice how the head moves. Notice how the shoulders move. Be with all the movements you can feel in the body. And then placing your hands on your knees, we're going to roll to seated in that silly way. Open your eyes, look to, well, I'll say your favourite knee, whichever knee you felt more comfortable going with. Let that knee come to the floor. You're going to take the opposite knee towards the foot you are and roll up. Hey, we did it. Right, we did it. Hey, Namaste. Thank you. Right, I can do this. I can stop the recording now. Get me. See, conditioned.